All right, everyone, thank you for joining us for the third segment of our True Talk Thursday podcast. We are going to turn to Maria Armstrong to continue the conversation about America's Rescue Plan. If you like what you hear and want to learn more about everything centered around education, please tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m. or subscribe below. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, so we started to kick around because we could dream big, right? But then it takes bold action to follow through on those dreams. Everybody's got all kinds of like kernels of ideas, and it's how do we start to really invest? And the words we choose are so important. Philip, you and I, we sit on a couple of committees together, coalitions, and it's important about the words, how we use our words, in the sense that for a long time, folks have gone to the Hill with a hand out saying, just give us more money and we'll do a better job. And, we're a lot more sophisticated in that sense, where we've been looking at outcomes for kids. There are some things that work and some things that don't work. And there's a whole lot of stuff that doesn't work for a whole lot of folks. And so knowing now that we have that kind of information at our fingertips, we can better articulate how to turn those ideas into bold actions with investment, because every behavior, everything we do for our kids has a global impact, a social impact. So thinking about what you all said in how to implode the system, if you will, so that we actually can do a better line of connecting the thread, if you will, threading it through from cradle to career, right? That's what we're talking about. And we talked about, this notion of seat time is not the way to go. Seat time has been a construct for childcare. It is aligned with our work day, and our work week has turned a page as well. So we've got to have that flexibility. 2+2 programs. You talked about concurrent enrollment. They've been around, but they've always been, these are pockets of what we know works and has been working for decades in some of these areas. But to be able to do it to scale, right, is what we're really talking about. Being able to provide those varieties of ways in which to educate. And you tugged at a heartstring when you said, maybe they need to take a year off. John, you said that. I'm sorry, I'm just going to put it out there. The wealthy have been using, quote, gap years for whatever. I was introduced that, not too long ago, only in conversation. I'm like, what's a gap year? I've never had a gap year. I've been working since I was, 18. Right. Come on now. And so, now I've got a grandson who just graduated in last May during when everything hit. And my daughter's like, he's got to go to school. I don't know what this boy's thinking. He wants to play on in his games and all that, and just kind of check out a little bit. And I said, you know what? Maybe he takes his gap year before he goes to college. We may not be wealthy, but you know what? There might be a little something. He can work part-time. But those ideas, I think that they can also take hold when we start bringing our young people in. They have a voice and a platform now that has been at their disposal like no other generation. They are learning. In spite or despite what's going on. They are engaging in communities. Like you said, we have micro-credentialing in some, and these other areas in which they are gathering information. Now, it may not be in the formal sense or traditional sense that we know of, but there's some learning going on, and we just got to make sure that we're tapping into that. So all of that said, guys, here's a question for you. Based on this plan and everything that we've talked about, what are your thoughts when it comes to short and long-term effects that this plan could actually have?
Well, yeah, so to me, I think that the short-term effect is that we have to, I think, get back to schools being reopened. We have to get back to some sense of normalcy. And I think that's really the short term. But I hope that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? That while we are getting back to having in-person instruction being more of an option, that, like we've said, that it's not that we don't just return to everything being normal, right? We need the chance to interact actually in person, but hopefully we can get back to something that looks a bit more like what John is describing, that's a bit more personalized.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get back and have different structures at least beginning to be put in place where more students can be getting college credit while they're in high school, so that they're more likely to go on to post-secondary and complete, even if they take a gap year. Or we can there's there have been proposals for like a national year of service. So after students graduate from high school, their gap year could be spending time in AmeriCorps, and maybe those students spending time in AmeriCorps could be helping to reinforce the capacity that we need in schools, because we need young people. Really, my kids don't want to hear this, but with the gaps growing, we need learning going on in the summertime, and that's not Zoom for summer school. That could be summer camp and expanding opportunities for summer camp. That so it's not just rich white kids going to cool summer camps, but that it's all kids going to summer camps where there's enriching activities, leadership development, along with learning, so that we can close these gaps. But yeah, to me, the short term is trying to, one, stop the COVID slide, stop the expansion of the achievement gaps, get kids back into school. The president wants to have the majority of K-8 schools open within the first 100 days. But let's not miss this opportunity to rethink how we do things, so that so that 10 years from now, I feel like we've been having this conversation for forever, but 10 years from now, we really should not be talking about achievement gaps and opportunity gaps in the way that we're talking about them today.
Right. And along those lines, I think that in the short term, definitely agree with Philippe. I think that we have to make sure that we go back to normal. Also with transparency and making sure that our leadership at the school districts are understanding the needs of our teachers, the needs of our school members, support personnel, bus drivers. We don't talk about those, but they are as critical as any other individual in the school system. And then, of course, making sure that, our families are feeling safe to bring their kids back to school. I think that right now the notion of only having, one teacher or one student exposed to COVID, it's way too much risk. And we have to make sure that our parents and our families are really understanding they're safe, and that there is some measurements in place that could help them to really transition into going back into mortal break instruction if they want to. Again, with having the option of having an online learning platform that they could join if they feel like it's more safe for them. So that is my answer when it comes into short term. And I think something connected to short term and long term, it's how we appreciate our teachers. I think that this conversation right now that we're having about the future of education and how we could reinvent it, it also has to be with how we elevate the position of teachers in our system. Because more than ever, many parents, again, talking about the I would say the catalyzer, which is the parents, they are helping to make sure that people understand that teachers are the most important part of our systems. And if we don't take care of them, and if we don't make sure that they have the proper PPP, if they don't have the proper accommodations, if they don't have the proper salaries, they're just going to leave the profession. There is teachers right now that are saying, you know what, I'm not doing this. This is way too much for me. And this is not what I signed up for. There is teachers that got trained during the summer for the new semester, and they were not paid for that training. They just went through it. because they believe in what they do. This teaching profession is about transforming lives every day. Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah.
But I think that we have to elevate that conversation, and we have to bring the community in the long term to talk about that, to see how, and I keep saying this here in South Florida, our teachers are heroes. Like someone that went to war and sacrificed themselves for the country should have, teachers should have the same treatment as them, and they heroes. Every teacher that retires should have something in their community where we remember. Because what happens when they talk about LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Steve Jobs or whatever, they always ask about who was your teacher when you were growing up, because that's the person who shaped the personality and character of that person. So I hope that in the short term, we come back to making more a safe space for people to go back to schools if they need to. But you also give them options in the short term, the 100 days from the K to 8. But in the long term, that we really start having conversations about transforming our educational system, but also transforming the way that we view the teachers in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with, the work that has to happen in parallel form, right? It's not let's just work on this and think about that later. We've got some things that we've got to be working on simultaneously. And the teacher retention, I heard a stat today that I don't know if it was NEA, I think it was NEA who put out a survey that just came out like within this week, where it said something like 26% they were looking at as losing teachers, 26% of our teacher workforce. And we started out this series talking about how, when it comes to not just elevating the profession, but thinking about what kind of an impact is that going to have? Our educational system in many communities is the largest employer. And so we have to start to really do a pivot, if you will, on how do we elevate, retain, but also given the fact that not everything this one plan can't cover it all, but how do we start to prioritize in parallel fashion to make some gains? And with that, I don't know what else we have to cut it off at some point. We've gone over our time limit, but I'll tell you what, I couldn't think of two other people that I wouldn't want to have this chit chat along with. And I'm sure we're going to continue this conversation. And I really thank you guys for both for spending your time with us, and definitely going to start pointing people to our YouTube on this particular segment so that they can actually hear the information you've both been able to bring to the table. For that, I thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.
Hey there, and don't forget, if you like what you hear and want to gain some more insight into what school districts are facing now, then tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m. or subscribe below. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great night.